Once the cast has been selected, it's time to start rehearsals. In many cases, the cast may only have 4 to 6 weeks to learn the show before it opens. The first night of rehearsal is often referred to as the first read-through.
The first night of read-throughs. We're reading through the play. You got your whole cast assembled. We're all meeting, discussing when are your conflicts, introducing the different people. This is the stage manager, this is this assistant stage manager. And then you go through the cast. Everybody goes and talks about what their roles are, and then you read through the show.
The first read-through is always exciting. There's so much energy.
They're long. They're always so long. I love them, but I'm like, whew.
So the first part is usually, it's the director talking about what's kind of the overall story, why are we telling this story, etc. And then oftentimes you introduce the design team and they do some form of design presentation. So it could be, Pete will come in and talk about the set and he'll have maybe a model and it's, little people on the little half-inch model. It's like, this is what it's gonna look like. Or it's a digital rendering and it's in SketchUp. Oftentimes I'll be there, I've got costume sketches or a research board or something depending on the needs of the show. Just to kind of give them a taste of like, here we are, we're all creating the world.
Most people haven't read the script yet, so it's kind of their first time. You're trying out new things. A lot of times, almost too high energy. It's hard to get things done for the first read-through because everyone's kind of a little hyper. It doesn't help that usually there's candy or some sort of sugary treat that kind of gets everyone all hyped up.
Everyone's laughing at everything because we've never heard this. We think it's so funny. And by the time we perform it, we're gonna be like, second read-through, third read-through. We've gotten there already with Snow Queen. It's been very fun because I don't know a lot of the freshmen.
I remember my first semester, the first read-through, it was just a bunch of people. They all knew each other. They were all like the loudest people I had ever met. And I was kind of annoyed at them. And then I noticed that this read-through for my 5th show, I was that person that I would have been frustrated by.
There's a lot of us, so you're like scanning the whole table. And I'm like, okay, there's like at least 6 people that I have never acted with. That's exciting. That's really exciting. Like just the fact that they have skills that I don't have.
It's a very interesting time, the first couple weeks. There is a phase of getting to know kind of everyone and kind of knowing people's boundaries in acting, because a lot of people have different boundaries in acting about the humor or the touching, the things that you do on stage that you don't do in real life.
I love rehearsals, especially at first. Everyone has so much energy, which is really great, but then it gets to a point when you got to figure out a way how to bring that energy down and tell people to focus that energy towards making the show.
After the first read-through, we started with a lot of table talk, is what they called it. And that was going through the script again, picking out the nitty-gritty stuff, like explaining what this means, or the director's and playwright's idea and writing process and what their vision for it all is, and to answer any questions that the cast would have about it.
So this is when we're dealing with the accents. It's a Christmas Carol. Okay, well you got 2 different English accents going on. You get your standard British accent and you got your Cockney accents. That's what happens during the first couple weeks.
And there's also a brainstorming stage, especially when we do world premieres. We have new scripts that have never been blocked before. There's a lot more input from actors than there usually would be in a normal production. The director usually comes in with, this is the kind of choreography that I'm looking for. But something like, Sleepy Hollow or Snow Queen, there's a lot more, well, what do we do for the blocking? What are people's input and ideas? Which is my favorite thing, because being able to be creative as an actor, not just with your lines, but also with your blocking and the entire feel of the play is a very cool experience. You kind of feel more like you're involved in the design process than you are just in the acting process.
I think that has been probably the coolest experience. There might be some things that I do differently that they're like, oh, we never thought about it that way when we were writing the show.
Marin and Emily are definitely lean more towards the actor freedom side, whereas a lot of the directors I've previously worked with have been a bit more rigid. Here is your blocking, do this. Here's the intonation for this line.
And then you go into your rehearsals of blocking. Blocking is stage movement. This person moves here. This person here comes and talks to that person. Blocking is where you're moving on stage and why.
It's very different from doing table read-throughs, because now you're not sitting around a table, you're all on stage and trying to actually start acting physically.
We've got rough blocking, which is generally you guys are a glom of people, you're gonna come over here. And by the way, at this point the actors are all still on book, they're still holding their scripts.
Snow Queen is 3 weeks out, and actually just last night we blocked the whole show. Everything that will have been seen on stage we've run through it at least once. So theoretically, they know what they're doing.
The directors usually tell the actors where to go. I do my best to keep track of what they're saying and what they're telling the actors. So if anybody later has a question, like where did I go at this point? Or if the directors don't remember, then I have it written down and can remind them.
Eventually we're gonna start adding in scene transitions, so things that are moving out and people who aren't in the scene will be taking off furniture and, you know, you'll have this prop or here is your prop and this is what you do.
And then you come into fine tuning or non-rough blocking. This is where actors might still be on script, but now the blocking is refined. Shortly after that, actors are off book. Now the acting really happens. Once actors are off book, I think that's when they bring magic, because now they're not worried about holding this thing. Now they can actually look into the eyes of the other actor. That changes everything.
Now you're thinking through things and you're actually making the choice to go somewhere and it's starting to feel a little bit more real.
I think that energy shift in a production usually happens when everybody is off book and knows all their lines, so they can actually get into their character instead of just reading their character.
I really enjoy working with actors who are so boisterous in the first month and they bring ideas and they are really annoying. They help devise it and they bring the comedy. I really respect when those same people are able to then pull it together and be professional when the time calls for it. I think that's maybe one of the most important traits that I've seen, at least in like a collegiate level production.
We're definitely getting to the point in the process now where the energy is becoming more focused and people are like, okay, this is becoming real. This is a thing that's happening and we got to take this seriously. So that's cool to see, because of course we love to see people having fun, but then it's also really exciting and encouraging when they say, okay, no, it's time to focus in. We got to make this the best show that it can possibly be.
Standard rehearsal. You roll up at call time. You usually have like a little powwow or something beforehand where the director's like, okay, we're gonna do this, this, and this. And then we're gonna work on this. And everybody kind of breaks. And then you just go and run it. And they'll be like, all right, here, change this, keep this, that was good. Let's try this. And it's just a lot of like changing and modifying and kind of making sure things are just that like perfect catch.
There are going to be times when you're working some scenes and not everybody needs to be called. So tonight we're calling Romeo and Juliet. We're doing the balcony scene. That's going to take all night. Nobody else is called that night. And then the next night, everybody's called. It's a big ensemble day. We're working the dance. Everybody has to be in the dance.
Rehearsals really vary, I would say, depending on the show that I've been in. So this one has been a lot more scene by scene, because the characters that Gerda is meeting are oftentimes there for a couple scenes on her journey, and then they kind of leave and she moves on to the next character. It's been a lot more sporadic for rehearsals. So I would say I was rehearsing about 2-3 times a week. I have a song to sing in theater physics. I was here pretty much every night for 3-4 weeks.
My job as an actor is kind of just to bring it to life. You know, you can have the greatest set in the world and you can have the best orchestration and you can have the greatest everything in the world, but if your actors aren't up to snuff, it's going to take people out of the immersion.
My job personally as an actor is to make sure that I've gone through the script closely enough and I've learned the nuances in my character so that I can bring enough of my own ideas to the table so that then all the directors have to do is trim back or add what they've already had previously in mind. So that their job is not to build my character from the ground up, but that's my job. And then they kind of shape what I've built.
I like to think of as reading the director's mind, thinking about what the director would want in any given circumstance, because that just saves everyone time.
I think that's something that's very unique about Bethany, is that generally, like, when people are casted, they've been casted for very specific reasons, and they tend to be able to intuitively know exactly where they have to go. So what I do when I'm off stage, I'll be generally at the back here, walking through my blocking, making sure I know my lines, because goodness knows I'll still forget them even if they've been down for weeks. I think the most fun though is when you've got cast members from the scenes that you're in who are also backstage at the same time, because either you're practicing things or you're actually just like bonding and building that ensemble like dynamic with those people, so it's not always necessarily work. I think messing around backstage creates beauty on stage because then the actors know each other and there's chemistry. The time where I saw that come out the most was when we were doing Dr. Faustus, and Lee and I did not know each other at the beginning of the semester, but then by the time we were at Tech Week, we had just done so much talking backstage that while we were on stage, it was just so much easier to build that chemistry.
If we're allowed in the house, I'll be in the house doing homework, but if it's like a full dress run or a performance, I'm pretty much always just in the wings. I don't go, unless I'm not in an entire act, I don't go usually off stage I just sit in the wings and kind of prepare for going back on. I find that keeps you more in tuned with my characters and the play in general, how the flow is going, how the audience is reacting. I think those are very important things to kind of know before going on stage.